It's that time. Everything and anything basketball, presented by The Outrage. With Kajan Thiruthanikasalam and host Spencer Byers, this is Polar Opposites.
Welcome everyone to Monday edition of the Outrage. Polar Opposites on the Outraging. Spencer Byers, Kajan Thiruthanikasalam. Cage, it's been a minute since I've been on schedule. We're back on schedule. Back in our regularly scheduled programming. Here at Polar Opposites. And even though we recorded technically on Thursday, we got posted on Sunday. We're still here. We're still continuing with what we said we were going to do. We can actually record on Thursday. Hopefully, we keep a little bit of consistency back in our lives. Some inconsistency going on in the NCAA. Both the men's and women's pools had some major upsets going on. I'll say Black Saturday on December 2nd, not too long ago, as Marquette losing to their rival Wisconsin, continuing a losing streak for the Golden Eagles against the Badgers. You then had Villanova lose to Drexler, unranked Drexler, whose losses beats Villanova. Villanova will most likely be unranked when the new AP poll comes out today. Duke lose to Georgia Tech, so that's 72-68. So number 17 in the nation goes down in the men's side. Kentucky lose to, I believe that would be North Carolina, Wilmington, but NC 80-73. So another big loss for a ranked team. And then you go down all the way to the bottom, and the game that I said would be interesting was, as Gonzaga does fend off the USC Trojans 89-76, but a couple really big upsets there on the men's side. And there was an upset yesterday as well. Yesterday, Sunday, December 3rd, Mississippi State loses to Southern U 60-59. So that's another ranked team going down over the weekend. Well, a lot of pickups coming to the most recent AP poll, which I think is coming out today because the women's came out already. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But the men's AP poll, I believe, will be coming out later today. So we'll see exactly what the damage is with all these big losses coming from all these top-ranked teams. We'll start off with the most interesting one in Marquette. Marquette go down. So we'll see where they now fall with their second loss of the season to the unranked Wisconsin Badgers. In a loss that didn't really perform well either in did the Golden Eagles.
I mean, Wisconsin might be unranked, but they're surging right now. They're surging at the right time right now. According to the first men's basketball power 36 from Andy Cass on the NCAA website, Wisconsin went up from 32nd to 14th in those rankings, where in those rankings, and Marquette fell from 3rd to 10th. So they beat Virginia, they beat SMU in Florida too. So it's not like Wisconsin may have been unranked, but they're surging at the right time. And the only other loss that Marquette really had was Purdue in Honolulu, and Purdue was ranked first on this power rankings from Andy Cass. They've now dropped to 4th. Arizona is actually at 1st, followed by Kansas after their thrilling win against UConn, and UConn actually went up a spot from 4th to 3rd. I can say the top 10 right now. Arizona's at 1, Kansas is at 2, UConn at 3, Purdue drops to 4th with that loss against Northwestern in overtime. Baylor at 5th, Houston at 6th, North Carolina jumped up 8 spots from 15th to 7th now, and Clemson jumped up 6 spots from 14th to 8th. Florida Atlantic are at 9th, and Marquette is at 10th. Now some of the notable teams that dropped off, or let's go with some of the teams that rose up in a big way. Gonzaga jumped up 14 spots after beating USC. Illinois jumped up 15 spots. Arkansas, Virginia, Ole Miss, Northwestern, South Carolina, Cincinnati, Princeton. All of these teams were unranked. Were not ranked in the Power 36 rankings. Princeton's now at 36. Cincinnati's at 34th. South Carolina at 26th. Northwestern 24th. Ole Miss 23rd. Virginia 22nd. And Arkansas is at 21st. Now, some of the teams that took some big stumbles, though, Tennessee went down from 9th to 33rd in this rankings, and Duke went down from 10th to 30th after losing to Arkansas, not only Arkansas, but Georgia Tech. And Villanova, Texas A&M were ranked in the top 15, dropped out of these rankings. So a lot of changes, a lot of changes in these Power 36 rankings from Andy Katz, and you would have to expect once that AP poll top 25 poll comes out, rankings come out soon. There's going to be a lot of shuffling in that men's bracket.
Another big one you missed there, Cage. Miami. The Hurricanes from 6 to 20 after their loss to Kentucky, and it was embarrassing. I watched some of that game, and it was hard to watch. Kentucky had a good end of the first half, and then they got blown by Miami in that second half. That was horrible. Horrible. But anyway, I will make sure I say the Andy Kraft Power 36 unofficial ranking, but it is a ranking nevertheless, so we will use it a little bit here as kind of a guideline before the AP poll does come out later. But the interesting part about Wisconsin is as he put them from 32 to a 14th in his power rankings. They've beaten Virginia, who's a very good team. We're in this power rankings. They just beat, as you mentioned, Marquette, their in-state rival. They got Michigan State and Arizona coming up. They got to go at Michigan State. They got to go at East Lansing. And then to top it off, before a couple of not great out of conference games before they start the Big Ten schedule for themselves, they got to go at Arizona. They got to Tucson. So talk about rough ends. You got ranked 3 Marquette. You got a top 5 ranked before the season in Michigan State, who's struggled this year so far. But Tom Izzo is still a great coach. Michigan State's still a really good team, even with their early season losses. And you got to play the number 1 team ranking, number 2 team in the nation right now. We'll see if they stay there with Kansas, obviously not having a loss yet. But it's a end for Wisconsin. You then got to play 2 mediocre teams in Jacksonville State and Chicago State before they then start the Big Ten play at the beginning of January. So, even if they can win one of those 2 games, if they can beat State and lose to the Wildcats, they're probably still going to be a top 25 team in the AP poll just because of who they're playing some really good top competition teams for the Badgers. And again, I told you this off the air, and I will mention it now. I do like Wisconsin, but I saw them play against Tennessee when I was over across the border after Thanksgiving, and they didn't look good against Tennessee in loss to the number 9 at the time. So, by Coach Greg Gard and his Badgers, but I do like Greg Gard. I know he's a good coach. He's had some really good players go to the NBA recently, and I wouldn't be surprised if they could upset, I would say both, but they made favorites against Michigan State right now with how bad they played so far this year. But as much as I love those Wildcats, that Arizona Wisconsin game is going to be a great game. It's going to be a great game between those 2 sides, especially with how good Wisconsin's looked. I said the Golden Eagles, who were ranked 3rd in the nation, and who lose for, I want to say, at least a 3rd time against their in-season or in-state rival in Wisconsin. It's the 130th game between the 2, and they're separated by 79 miles, and it's their 4th straight win over Marquette. I believe.
And there's gonna be
They
and there's gonna
continue
be
to
some and there's gonna be some big games coming up like this week too. First one that we gotta mention, one that's actually gonna be close to us come Saturday, Alabama versus Purdue. And that's Zach Edey's homecoming.
And actually, Cage, before go ahead.
Um,
We'll quickly
one
mention
of
it's
the
their third straight win since they had that 4-game winning streak back in the early 90s or early 2000s. Early 2000s, pardon me. Continue.
mhm. But yeah, the Naismith Hall of Fame series in Toronto, Saturday, December 9th at 1:30 p.m. Purdue taking on Alabama, in what is Zach Edey's homecoming. Zach Edey, a dominant, establishing his dominance in the NCAA once again. So that's gonna be it's gonna be a good one to see, like local fans here in Toronto, and maybe you'll see some people across the country come in for this one, to see a talent like Zach Edey show out for his home country, against an Alabama team that's kind of scuffling, but will still be a good game regardless. Purdue looking to try to bounce back after that loss against Northwestern, so that's going to be to Northwestern, so that's going to be a big one. That's kind of like a get right game.
Crimson Tide are ranked too. The Crimson Tide are also ranked too. So again, they're a good basketball team. Coach Oates has a good program over there with the Crimson Tide. So it's going to be a good game here in Toronto between Purdue and Alabama. Even as good as Purdue is, and they're going to be favored in that game, it's going to be a great game.
Yeah. There's a couple of Jimmy V Classic games at MSG on Tuesday. Florida Atlantic versus Illinois. That'll be a good one. And then the big one, arguably the biggest one of the Jimmy V Classic, North Carolina versus UConn. Man, will that be like a heated affair?
Well, you got to expect North Carolina's going to jump in the most recent 8 poll with their 3 straight wins, including one over Tennessee, Florida State, and Arkansas. And you got to think Connecticut, UConn's going to go down because of their most recent loss in their last game against Kansas. Even though the number 1 team in the nation, you're going to lose, you're going to drop.
Well,
So
weirdly enough,
it can be a lot closer than 4-17.
Well, weirdly enough, in these rankings, UConn actually went up a spot, which was kind of shocking. But then again, like when you're like in close with with Kansas, and that's your only loss, can't really dock them too much for that.
I should mention some of these games are tomorrow, like UConn versus North Carolina is tomorrow, which is Tuesday, December 5th. And then Wednesday, you've got that Marquette versus Texas game that's second on his top 10 games of the week. Number 3, currently Marquette are going to drop against number 16, Texas. That should be a great game between 2 really good teams. That's also in Milwaukee at Marquette. So that's going to be a real rough game for the Longhorns. And then the Illini take on Tennessee. We'll see where those 2 teams end up finishing in the most recent AP poll. But the game is in Knoxville, so the Illini don't have an easy run here either before they get back in conference in the Big Ten. And there were some really good games going on Saturday, December 9th, which is actually when that Purdue-Alabama game is slated to happen. So, as you mentioned, Cage, a lot of really good games going on. A lot of top competition going on. And we're still waiting for those AP polls to come out, so we can't speculate anymore on where teams are going to fall, where teams are going to rise, but it's going to be really interesting where some of these top-ranked teams like Marquette are going to end up falling with their loss. And then where teams are going to jump like Wisconsin. If Wisconsin becomes the top 25 team in the nation, or if they stay just outside of the top 25. Now over to the women's side of the bracket. Now some upsets going on. So the Ivy League Stanford go down to the Bulldogs. The Cardinals lose to the Bulldogs 96-78 in a game that Cameron Brink barely played in. So obviously dealing with something there is one of the top players in the nation, and it's a big reason why the number 3 team goes down in both the men's and women's pools over the weekend. Some other big games with ranked teams. Ohio State beats Tennessee 78-58. UConn loses to Texas 80-68, which then drops UConn because the women's poll, as I mentioned, did come out. So quickly taking a run to my women's AP poll, UConn drops to their lowest ranking in 30 years at 17 in the nation. Yeah, you heard me right. That's their lowest ranking in the last 30 years, is 17th.
That says a lot. That says a lot based off of how good that program has been run by Gino Ariema.
Yeah, you'd
And
be right.
Stanford goes down 6 spots after that loss to Gonzaga, albeit with Cameron Brink playing limited minutes. LSU's been rolling, but they still stayed tied for 7th with Colorado. Big statement win there. A couple of big statement wins after they've kind of been on track. They've kind of been on track on the court ever since being upset in their opening game against Colorado. So they've really started to figure things out. It hasn't really changed in terms of the rankings, but you got to expect once the next time these rankings come up, you got to expect LSU are eventually going to move up.
Mississippi State followed after their loss. Yeah, Mississippi State lost in both the men's and women's brackets. Mississippi State lost to Chattanooga 59-53, which makes them go unranked. There's 5 unranked teams who jump into the poll. Penn State 25, North Carolina 24, Gonzaga jumps to 23, Creighton to 22, and Washington State. The Cougars get up to 21. So that is 5 straight unranked teams last poll that get in this poll. And some other risers and fallers. Virginia Tech fall from 9 to 15 with their most recent loss. Marquette and Louisville drop 4 spots each, 22 and 23 to 18 and 19. Louisville 18, Marquette 19. Florida State drops from 5 spots from 15 to 20. And then looking at some risers, Texas, with their win over UConn, jumped from 10 to 5. And they're probably the biggest riser that I can see right now. Baylor jumped 3 spots, 13 to 10.
You mean Marquette and Louisville rose up 4 spots?
No, they dropped 4 spots. They dropped from 22 and 20. No, you'd be right. I'm reading that completely wrong. You're right. They jumped 4 spots each, 22 and 23 to 19 and 18. Marquette jumps to 19. Louisville jumps to 18. You were right, Kasia. That is my bad. That is my dyslexia taking full effect, as it likes to do once in a while. Notre Dame jumped 4 spots, 18 to 14. So some risers and some fallers in the women's bracket with some pretty big losses going around.
In fairness, Spencer, I'm blind, so it doesn't make things any better for the both of us.
No, it doesn't. No games going on between ranked teams tonight. No ranked teams involved in any games tonight. As looking down the women's pools to see if there's any big games going on around college basketball. Don't see any ranked games coming up until next Sunday. Next Sunday is the most recent. You're going to see Washington State take on UCLA in Connecticut. So a neutral site game between the Seminoles and the Bruins.
Mm-hmm.
And then South Carolina, takes on Utah. That's also in Connecticut. So the number 1 team in the nation, the unanimous number 1 team in the nation, take on the Utes. That'll be an interesting game. And then North Carolina take on UConn in Connecticut. So hopefully UConn can keep themselves above water with that game against North Carolina.
Hopefully they can, because it's kind of been a scuffle now for this UConn women's team. but I guess it's just something that we're going to have to wait and see.
Growing pains have been really the problem for the Yukon Huskies on the women's side of the bracket, at the very least.
Doesn't help that they're dealing with injuries too, especially with Fudd. You got to feel for her after, I believe it was tearing her ACL and meniscus during a practice.
I believe so. And again, that's injured again because she got injured last year and barely played last year because of injuries. So she's been really struggling recently. I believe we talked about injuries picking her first game
Yep, we
back
did.
for the LSU Tigers. So we'll see what they look like. They're 8-0. They were 7-0 without her, or I want to say 7-0. I'm not sure what game she came out of, but they were undefeated without their best player, and now they won their first game with her back. So we'll see when they come back in about a week and a half's time, or about a week's time to come back. Their first game back is the 10th of December for the Tigers. So we'll see if the Baton Rouge side can continue their winning ways with Angel Reese back in the lineup and back in the locker room consistently. And Gage, you want to talk about the play-in tournament again, the in-season tournament, because you want to predict the rest of it. So we predicted on the last show, if you didn't listen to it, who we would pick to win the play-in games. I picked the Celtics, the Kings, the Knicks, and the Suns. I picked 2 favorites and 2 dogs. Gage, did you pick the Pacers?
I did pick the Pacers.
You
And
picked
I
the
think the
Pacers,
Pacers are
the
the
Kings.
underdogs.
The Pacers are the underdogs. They're 5.5-point underdogs. You picked the Kings, who are favorites. You picked the Bucks, who are favorites, and then you picked the Suns too.
I picked the Suns.
And you picked the Suns, who are underdogs by only a point and a half. But anyway, so I got the Celtics, the Kings, the Knicks, the Suns. You've got the Pacers, the Kings, the Bucks, and the Suns. So, Cage, with that being said, as I pull out
Yep.
my little trusty notepad, you wanted to pick who you think wins the semifinals. So, who do you got?
And actually, not only the semifinals based off of our predictions, but winning it all. This might look silly by the end of the night, depending on how these quarterfinal games fare out. But
that's the fun part, Cage. That's the fun
yeah,
part, is knowing that literally our predictions cannot come true now. They're an impossibility after just day one. Because tonight is the Celtics playing the Pacers while the Kings play the Pelicans. That's in Indiana and in Sacramento. And then tomorrow the Bucks will host the Knicks and the Lakers will host the Suns. So in LA and in Milwaukee. So by the end of tonight, we'll see if either of our predictions ring true. One of us will be wrong tonight with the Celtics game at 7:30, which I probably will be trying to watch tonight since I am off and I have afternoons tomorrow. So I will not have to wake up at 6 a.m. to go to work. I should be able to watch that Celtics game now. So I might actually turn on the television, Cage, and adjust my television set to watch some basketball for the first time in a minute.
yep.
So we'll see if I can jinx or help my team win. We'll see which one ends up working out for myself, Cage. But we'll start with you. So you have Pacers Bucks in your Eastern
Yep.
final. The complete opposite of my Eastern final. Who do you have winning your Eastern final of the
Well,
the in-season tournament?
see, since this is in Vegas, I gotta go with the veteran team in this situation, and that's the Bucks. Now, the only reason why I say the Bucks, the last time these two teams played, I believe it was in Indiana. Indiana won that game 126-124. Obviously, Giannis with 54 points and 12 rebounds in that game. Mathurin had a big game, 26 and 11. Miles Turner had 21. And Tyrese Halliburton had a double-double, 29 points, 10 assists, and 6 rebounds. But why do I say the Bucks are going to win this game? Well, they only lost by 2 against the Pacers, and they did not have Damian Lillard. Now, with Damian Lillard back in that lineup against a Pacers team that, as great as they are offensively, defensively, not so much. And because the home court advantage really isn't there, I gotta go with the Bucks if they're at full strength. Because I don't like the Damian Lillard factor is there, and I don't think there's anybody on Indiana that can stop Giannis.
So you pick the Bucks to make the in-season tournament final in your bracket.
Hmm.
And then who do you got coming out of the West, Cage? We both got the Kings and the Suns. Who do you have making it out of the West?
This depends on pace and what dictates, and if the pace gets dictated. I think the big battle that nobody's gonna really talk about because this big man isn't really up there in terms of big man ranking. But to me, the decisive factor of that semifinal is going to be Nurk versus Sabonis. And can Nurk stay on pace or like can hold his own against Sabonis? With that being said, this in-season tournament has generally favored faster paced teams. And Sacramento as of late has been rolling. And I think the extra day of rest that Sacramento might have after being the Pelicans, which we both have them beating the Pelicans, will help out Sacramento more than a Phoenix team that would probably need more rest than other teams. So I got Sacramento advancing to the in-season tournament final. Now,
So you got Sacramento versus the Milwaukee Bucks in your final.
yep, I do.
So do you want to say the winner or do you want me to say my final?
Say your final first.
So I've got the Knicks and the Celtics in my Eastern final because the Celtics
Yep.
are going to kick the snot out of the Pacers, obviously. And the Knicks, I just have a bad feeling about the Bucks team. They've been so inconsistent, and I feel like the Knicks are just going to kind of get away with one. I'm not going to say it's going to be a big win, but I think it's going to be a win where the Knicks just kind of steal it. And then I obviously agree with you with the Kings and the Suns. Pardon me. On the West side. So for my East final, I always have the Celtics winning because the Knicks suck. And the Celtics have already beaten them a couple times this season. And I got no doubt the Celtics are going to overpower the Knickerbockers and make it to the East or make it to the in-season tournament final. On the West side, where it's a little bit more complicated, I pick talent. I pick that Booker and Durant are going to just outscore the Kings. I think the Suns beat the Kings to make it to the finals. I think it's a Celtics, Suns in-season tournament final, a maybe precursor to the NBA finals in 5 months or 6 months.
No, it isn't. Neither team will make it to that stage.
I'm just saying it could be a precursor, Cage, because we know the Celtics are going to go. I just don't know if the Suns are going to go.
I'm
So who
just
do you have
saying
winning
neither.
your final? Who do you have in your final, Cage? Who do you have winning your final, Cage? Pacers?
No, I had Bucks.
Oh, Bucks, pardon me. Bucks?
You know
Or
what?
what?
I'm
Do
a,
I
I'm
know
a,
what?
I'm a, you know what? I'm gonna go with Light the Beam. You
You
gotta
got
go with Light the Beam.
You're going with
I got
Sacramento?
I got Sacramento. Something about the Sacramento team. They're so offensively potent. And from their starting lineup, I think Fox is gonna have his way with Lillard. How they guard Giannis, because that is going to be an issue. But it's also like this isn't really a full strength Bucks team with Chris Middleton trying to get into form. And to be honest, like you said, this Bucks team has been inconsistent. And Sacramento, as of late, has been rolling. They're so offensively potent, and it's not just Fox and Sabonis. It's the other guys that sort of scare me. Because you can have Herter that goes off for 20. You can have Harrison Barnes that goes off for 20. Heck, you can have Malik Monk that can go off for 20. And Trey Lyles has been playing well in his minutes back since coming back. And then Sasha Vezenkov, a big part of that comeback win against the Warriors to help them advance to the in-season tournament knockout stages. So I don't know, something like I feel like Sacramento's got more offensive firepower, more so than Milwaukee with their defense. And I think Lillard is just going to be exploited to the point. I think the backcourt is just going to be exploited repeatedly by the Aaron Fox. So in that sort of sense, I got the Kings winning it all.
Okay, I gotta be honest here, Cage. I gotta be honest. If the Celtics don't win, I want the Kings to win. If there's another team I want to win that's not the Boston Celtics, it is Sacramento Kings. I don't want the Suns to win it. I don't want the Lakers to win it. I don't want the Knicks to win it because it'll be unbearable. I don't want the Bucks to win it. I want the Kings to win. Indiana. I wouldn't be mad if Indiana won it because you and I both know I love Coach Carlisle. I love Benedict Mathurin. I love Tyrese Halliburton. I love half that. I love Obi Toppin. I love half that team. I literally love the Indiana. I love the Indiana Pacers. I love the Indiana Pacers. I love the whole team. Like I can name like 8 guys off that team I love, and I love their coach.
Andrew Nembhard too,
Andrew
another
Nembhard
Canadian.
played for Gonzaga. I'm a fan of the Indiana Pacers. Okay, I like the Indiana Pacers. So I wouldn't be mad if they won it, but I want the Celtics to win it more, obviously, because they're playing each other. But I want the Kings to win it. I really want the Kings to win it. Especially with what happened last year with them losing in the first round to the Golden State. I'd love to see Sacramento win something. Even if it means nothing, it'd still be great for them to win something. So I do like your prediction.
And for the young guys to get some of that in-season tournament money. And for some of the young guys to get that in-season tournament money, that would be huge.
That it would be. And Cage, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the in-season tournament games are today and tomorrow, so 4th and 5th of December. Then the 7th is the semifinals, and the 9th or the 10th?
The
That
9th.
is the final. I thought it would be the 9th. The 10th also off, so I guess just more days off. So yeah, so it'll be the 4th and 5th, the 7th, and the 9th for the in-season tournament. So on the 9th, the final of the in-season tournament, Celtics versus Suns, finals, and the Celtics beat the Suns because Jason Tatum drops 45 and gives him an MVP stamp on the season because the Celtics are just too good. And maybe by the 9th, Porzingis is back. Who knows? So maybe the Celtics can push the Suns around.
Well, I just traded for Porzingis, so I hope he'd be back by then.
And if you don't know what you mean by traded, it means Cajuns in about 28 basketball fantasy leagues, or right a range of about nine different publications. So Cajun has about every player you can think of on a fantasy team. He has a TJ McConnell on a fantasy team right now. He has
not now. That was last year.
He has Kevin Knox on a fantasy team right now.
I would never touch Kevin Knox ever.
He has Bogdanovich without playing a game yet on his team. Was it
Bojan?
Bojan Bogdanovich. I knew there's 2 of them. I didn't know which one, so I guessed. I took the leap of faith.
And even then, I have Obadiah.
Not my boy Obi Toppin. Didn't I use that one on you?
I had to say. Yeah, you did.
Wasn't that a scalpel board? Wasn't
it? Obadiah Richard Toppin Jr. As Spencer just.
Always juniors. Unlike my boy, Bones Highland's actual name. I can't remember how to.
Nishan? Yeah.
My boy Nishan Highland.
Nishan Lee
Bones is such a cooler name. No wonder he goes by Bones. Bones is a way cooler name than Nishan.
I mean, Nishan's not a bad name. Bones is just better.
Yeah, but exactly, Bones is just better. So you got the Kings winning the in-season tournament. I got the Celtics. You got the West. I got the East. By the end of tonight, we're gonna know if we're right because we both have teams winning it that play tonight. So we'll know by the end of tonight. We'll know by tonight if we, even have a chance of talking about this on Thursday, going into the semifinals, or if
I
we're gonna
mean,
look
we
like
will.
two idiots.
I mean, we will. I mean, we will. It's either we're gonna look like geniuses or we're gonna look like idiots at the end of it.
Well, I think you know which way. I think you know which way most people are leaning
Amen.
with that. But I think our last topic of the day, Cage, is going to be going into Ime Udoka and LeBron James having a on-court spat, which leads to both them getting ejected. LeBron had already
No,
had a
it was
tech.
just
They
no.
it was just
It was
LeBron.
you. It was just Udoka that got ejected because Udoka already had a tech and LeBron didn't have a tech, so they got assigned double techs and LeBron just had one tech, and because Udoka already had a tech from earlier in the game, Udoka got tossed.
I thought LeBron also got tossed, but apparently just
No.
Udoka got himself an early shower as the current coach of the Houston Rockets. As again, they had a little on-court verbal altercation before referee TJ Orr sends Udoka to the locker room. And when they asked LeBron what they were talking about, he said Thanksgiving, how much we enjoyed Thanksgiving. So apparently he just got
Which
heated
in
about the stuffing, Cage. Guess
which
they
in
argue
other
which
words was
grandma's recipe makes a better turkey.
a whole bunch of cap. Because
What do you mean? You don't think they were arguing about who made the better mashed potatoes? Which wife made the better mashed potatoes? Which girlfriend, in fairness to Ime Udoka? I let you like that one. Who made the better I don't know either Thanksgiving dishes, I'll be honest. I've seen them, Cage. I don't eat them or look at them or know what they are. But they were arguing about turkey recipes. They were arguing over which turkey tastes better. So that's all they were talking
well,
about, Cage. You're overplaying this.
well, what what actually kind of transpired during that exchange was that Ime Udoka, I believe this was to Cam Reddish after a foul call, was stop playing like bleep. By bleep, it starts with a B. Now, LeBron, throughout the course of his career, does not like that word at all. I think it was Mario Chalmers said this in an earlier podcast. Because Mario Chalmers and LeBron back in the Heat days had a testy exchange like that. So LeBron did not like that. And told Udoka to chill and don't use that term around loosely. And Udoka basically just wanted the smoke. It's like, what you gonna do about it? Because in the post game interview after that, Ime Udoka called LeBron James referred to LeBron James as the player. So Spence, your former Celtics coach, the former Celtics coach wants smoke with the one of the all-time greats.
I think the key word in that sentence, Cage, is former head coach of the Boston Celtics. Former, no longer the head coach of the Boston Celtics, is now my boy Joe Mazzulla. I know you're a hater of Joe Mazzulla because you're just a hater, born hater, trusted hater. But it is A-okay. It is A-okay, Cage. But it is A-okay to be just a hater, Cage, because you're just a hater. It's okay, Cage. You're just a purebred, ESPN-fed, Fox watching hater. And it's okay, Cage. Someone's got to be the positive guy on the podcast, which is me. And you got to be the negative Nancy, which is you. It's okay, Cage. It's okay. It is okay.
I would guarantee you that Boston Celtics team last year would have had a better chance of winning the NBA Finals and would have actually made the NBA Finals had Udoka coach instead of Mazzulla. Because as bad as his transgressions were from Ime Udoka, which I don't think he should have been outed the way he was, but you can't sort of discount the fact that in this very first season as a Celtics head coach, he led that team to the NBA Finals. And look what he's doing with the Rockets. The Rockets are actually playing decent basketball, even though they haven't won on the road. They're playing some decent basketball. They're playing competitive basketball. I think they're around 500 or maybe a game under 500. So I can say this with confidence that if Udoka was coaching that team last year instead of Mazzulla, no disrespect to Joe Mazzulla,
Full respect to Joe Mazzulla.
I think that Celtics team might have had a better chance of winning. Would definitely have a better chance of winning it all last year. But that's just me.
I just don't know. I feel like you're right if he didn't do what he did. If he had not had that relationship with the staffer while having a girlfriend, which I know doesn't mean anything, but still, I think it should be mentioned. I'll pull a Malika Andrews here and we'll mention it. And then I believe
I can't believe you.
And then I believe the actual transgression was that he made a disparaging comment about said staffer that he had a relationship with, had relations with, I guess. Like the great president once said, Bill Clinton, hey, he had relations. He had relations with that woman. Anyway, and then was suspended for the full year. If that hadn't happened, I agree with you. But I feel like once that happened, I don't know if he could have went back in that locker room and had the same success. I don't know if that would have happened. I don't know if Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and those boys would have listened to him. I don't know.
I just think he's that good of a head coach.
I think he's a good head coach too. And I think he's proven that even with his only year and a half coaching in the NBA right now, with the Celtics 1 year and now quarter of the season with Houston, he's definitely a good head coach, and he's shown that. And he could be a great one if you give him time. But he's got to get that time.
Well, I do agree with you that what had happened behind the scenes with Ime Udoka definitely kind of put a damper on it, and I don't think that was something he could have recovered from with continuing to be the head coach of the Boston Celtics. I just have a problem with how it was handled. You know how I feel about that, Spencer. It should have been handled behind closed doors. That should not have been public. And Boston knew what they were doing. And Boston knew what they were doing when they made it public. And Boston's had some sketchy stuff in terms of former Celtics heading out the door, like Marcus Smart. Literally found out, I think, from a text or a tweet that he got traded.
It was a tweet. You found it out on social media.
And I kind of had a bad taste on the Celtics because I did not really hate the Celtics until what they did with Isaiah Thomas. And then publicizing this whole thing about Udoka, when in reality, quietly handled that behind the scenes. It did not need to be public. But
go ahead, Cage.
But anywho, had it not been for that, I think Udoka would have led that team back to the NBA Finals. I don't know. I don't think they would have beat the Nuggets because I don't think there would have been a center that would have had any sort of answer for Jokic, to be quite honest with you. Now, Porzingis is on that team and they're playing Jokic. That's a different story. But I don't think there would have been a big that could have guarded Jokic, and Jokic would have just been it just would have been barbecue chicken in the paint for Jokic.
And Cage, honestly, let's think about pardon me. Let's think about this too, though, from a perspective of if they make the finals, do they make the trades for Drew Holiday? Do they make the trades for well, Drew Holiday might still happen because Lillard would still go to the Bucks, you'd think. But do they still trade for Porzingis? Because you think the NBA Finals. What are you trying? I know you're still trying to win, but if you're that close, you really make that big of a change. You add Drew Holiday, you get rid of Marcus Smart, try to get a better point guard, which we all know they needed. Does Porzingis come in? Which then means can they beat the Nuggets? So maybe losing in the conference finals was I'll say one of those cliches, blessing in disguise. Maybe it was a good thing that they didn't go to the finals, because then they get Porzingis, then they get Holiday and get a lot better. In all honesty, as much as I love Robert Williams, as much as I love Marcus Smart, the Celtics got unequivocally better.
They got better.
I would even say exponentially better, without losing a whole lot on the bench side, at least. But now, Cage, I want to move back. Again, pardon me, my voice is still arguing with me. To the college game, because guess what just came out, Cage?
AP
Hot off the
rankings?
press. Hot off the press, the AP poll. Arizona is the number 1 team in the nation after Purdue loses. They dropped to 4. UConn drops 1 spot to 5 with their loss to Kansas, I
Mhm.
believe. Baylor jumps 3 spots to 6. Gonzaga drops 4 spots from 11 to 7. Marquette drops.
You mean rose up?
Rose up 4 spots. Jumps 4 spots from 11 to 7. Marquette drops 5 spots from 3 to 8. North Carolina jumps to 9. 16 to 9. Creighton up 5 spots. And then Texas up a couple spots to 12. Creighton is the 10th team in the nation. So again, 15 to 10. They're the top 10. So top 10 is Arizona in order. Arizona, Kansas, Houston, Purdue, UConn, Baylor, Gonzaga, Marquette, North Carolina, and Creighton are your top 10. And then the fallers, Kentucky drops 4 spots, 12 to 16. Miami drops 8 to 15. That's 7 spots.
And if that wasn't bad enough, Tennessee drops down 7 spots from 10 to 17. And then wait, before I get to that, Texas A&M dropped 7 spots from 14 to 21. But then the biggest drop off, you gotta think, has to be Duke from 7 all the way down to 22nd.
Yeah, they're almost out of the rankings now, and if they lose again, period, even if it's to a ranked team, they're going to fall out. The unranked teams that are now ranked, number 25 is SDSU, San Diego State University, great team. So SDSU is now 25. Clemson's 24, undefeated Clemson. And then Wisconsin, 6-2 Wisconsin, 23rd in the nation. Greg Gard and his team are in the top 25.
They are. And to kind of continue from like the top 10 onwards, Florida Atlantic rose up 2 spots to 11th. Texas obviously goes up 4 spots from 16th to 12th. Colorado State, perfect, from 20th to 13th. So a 7. They moved up 7 spots, easily the biggest jump, maybe the biggest jump of this rankings. BYU goes up 5 spots to 14th. Miami goes down 7. Kentucky goes down 4. Tennessee at 17th. James Madison still perfect. They're at 18th. Oklahoma at 19th, going up 6 spots. And 20th is Illinois, going up 4 spots from 24th.
I will also mention, Cage, the 3 teams that fall out completely, or I believe it was 3 teams. Yeah, 3 teams that fall out completely. Villanova at 18, they fall out completely. Mississippi State, 21, they fall out completely. And Alabama fall out completely at 23. I expect Coach Oates and the Crimson Tide will be back in the AP poll at some point this year. I don't know when, but I think Alabama's good enough as a program. They're going to be back. I don't know when they're going to be back, but I think they're going to be back.
Mm-hmm. And we also forgot to mention Houston now at 3rd.
Yeah, they jumped from 6 to 3. Kansas jumps from 5 to 2. And Arizona jumps to 1 from number 2 in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
So again, a lot of movement in the men's side, a lot of movement on the women's side as well. As both AP polls are out and fresh off the press. I knew they came out on the same day. Normally the men's comes out before the women's, but today the women's came out first. So good thing we kind of stalled. We stalled this podcast because you were late and I slept through it.
Yeah,
and then we finally get going. I'm wait. We're kind of stalling. Not really. We're talking. We're having some fun. And I was kind of waiting for the AP poll, trying to wait for the AP poll, and finally the AP poll comes out in all of its glory. And Cage, we're going to end with this. So We haven't had the Scrabble board in a little while because of you and I missing some episodes, missing some time. But I got 2 names.
Okay. Let's get to it.
All right. BNUAC.
BNUAC.
Now, I will say this is not a player. Not a player. But it is a name in the basketball circle. Not trying to give too much away.
BNUAC.
Yes. And they're not a player, but they're in the basketball circle.
Okay.
Tell me when you need a hint.
All right, give me a hint.
They are an owner in the NBA right now. Well,
Oh, Mark Cuban.
Sort of an owner.
Mark
it is
Cuban.
Mark Cuban of the Dallas Mavericks. He sold a majority stake in the team. He will retain his basketball operations position. I'm not sure if we mentioned this already, but I'm not sure if
Yeah,
we did.
We did.
But regardless, Mark Cuban has sold his shares, and Mark Cuban will now be the minority owner of the Dallas Mavericks. That's right.
Full control of basketball. Full control of basketball operations, by the way, for the Mavericks. But he bought that franchise for $285 million in 2000. He sold it for He sold his share for $3.5 billion.
So he made a little bit of money on the deal, didn't he, Cage? Didn't he?
A little bit. That's the understatement. That's the understatement of the year.
Yeah, he only made a little bit of money on the deal. Anyway, Cage, ready for name number 2?
Yes.
Now, I believe we talked about this one as well, but it's still topical.
Yep.
WBOEOSKTR.
Wait, repeat that.
WB.
Okay.
OE.
Mm-hmm.
OSKTR. And no, Cage, I didn't even notice I put KT talking to KT. That was an unironic and unintentional use there.
Fair enough. And this is an entire last name, right?
Yes, this is just one last name. There's no hyphen. There's nothing. There's just one last name.
Oh,
Tell me
Russell
when you
Westbrook.
need your hint. It is Russell Westbrook, who is now on the bench for the Los Angeles Clippers. After saying he'll go to the bench, that he'd like to go to the bench to help the second unit, he was put to the bench. And I believe Trey Mann is starting over him, or Terrence Mann, pardon me, is starting over him now, as Bones Highland, we mentioned earlier with his name, is currently out with some sort of injury. But again, I know you and I both feel the same way about this, so I'll just say it, and you can kind of piggyback off it if you want. How much we hate that Russell Westbrook's being forced to come off the bench here, even though he asked for it. I'm sorry. The newcomer's got to go to the bench. You can't make the guy who's been here be like, you know what? We traded for a prettier girl. You get to go to the bench. You get to go to the back of the car. Like, that's no. They should have benched Harden. They should have made Harden play his role and not force Westbrook to now have to come off the bench and be, I'll say that guy, but be the teammate that we all know he is. But it would have been nice to have Harden actually, play his role, make Harden play his role and not just allow him to be the system, quote unquote, as he called himself.
That's a great line, but that was also the most hilarious and out of pocket and like WTH.
It's gonna make a meme because it is just hilarious to say I am the system. I am
system
the system.
System malfunctioning. Pew 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 pew. With Kawhi being known as a robot, that's gonna make for quality content right there from the Clippers, albeit for all the wrong reasons. Along with what was there's a ton of memeable nicknames on that team. The robot for Kawhi. Uh, Playoff P. Some people call him backboard P.
There's a lot of
Hitting
nicknames that just have blank P with it because of Paul George.
the system now. Even though this nickname I think is unwarranted, but it gets used a lot. It's been used a lot ever since Westbrook kind of left OKC, but Westbrook.
Which
Um,
I ironically used.
yeah, I was like, wait a minute, is that Westbrook or Westbrook? I'm like, damn. But yeah, a ton of quality content here for this Clippers team, but albeit not in the ways that they wanted it to be.
Both of us do not agree that James Harden should be the starter over Russell. That's kind of dumb.
In fairness, Harden has been better as of late. Like he's played better compared to how he started off with the Clippers. And in fairness, Harden is the better player between the two as of right now. And didn't have the benefit of a training camp either because of or a preseason because of what he dealt with in Phil the sort of will he get traded, won't he get traded in Philly. But still, Westbrook had that Clippers offense running and humming since he signed with them after being bought out by the Utah Jazz. Harden's got to prove himself. Harden has to be in that prove it mode instead of getting everything handed to him. Sometimes fit matters more than talent. And Westbrook starting on that team at the time made that Clippers offense a lot better. Now, Westbrook has still contributed in whatever way possible. And maybe Harden starting, and maybe this lineup with Harden, George, Leonard, Zubac, and Terrence Mann might be a good thing for the Clippers come the end of the season. And maybe playoffs if they get that far. But it's just not a good look to do it now. If this was like a month or two in, or 3 months in, different story. But not right away.
Well, we'll see if Westbrook stays on the bench or if there's some more movement going around the Los Angeles Clippers. But watch the season tournament games tonight. Watch the Celtics destroy the Pacers and win the whole thing in the coming week. But
No,
before the Celtics
the
destroy the
Celtics aren't even
Pacers,
going to get it. Yeah, the Pacers might surprise people. The Celtics won't even get to the semis.
well, before the Celtics destroy the Pacers and the Kings beat up on the Pelicans. For Kajan Thiruthanikasalam, I'm Spencer Byers. Thank you so much for tuning into an episode of Polar Opposites here on the Outrage Inc.
Go Pacers.
Go Celtics.